everyone, welcome to today's class. Today we are continuing from the last class where we talked about the double entry principle of bookkeeping. We promised we were going to bring more examples, more practical examples for us to really understand. So we are doing this so as to simplify the understanding of this basic accounting principle. And today's class is dedicated to accounting students who might be at the different level of their career. Those in secondary school, those at the ICANN ATS level, and even those at the professional level. We are also dedicating this to employees that are in different business organizations, especially those in the accounts department, because this question is a regular feature in exam and also a regular occurrence in any business environment. So let us pay attention. For those of us who are still finding it as a challenge to understand some of these basic principles upon which lies the treatment of accounting entry. So let's look at the question. The following relate to the books of Timile Enterprises. Sold goods on credit to Adiola amounting to 5 million on 1st March 2022, and returned goods worth 50,000 due to damages. Make necessary accounting entries in the books of Timile Enterprises. ICANN ATS March 2024. So like I said, you can see that this question is picked from the March 2024 ATS exam. So it's a very good question for students of accounting and employees in the account departments of different business organizations. So let's look at how we can understand it so as to provide solution to it. So first, we have to identify that in this question is a two-in-one question. It's one question, but we have two aspects or two transactions in one question. So we can call it two-in-one question, which the first is the sale of goods on credit to Adiola, and the second is a return of goods on the account of damages. So these are the two transactions in this particular question. So now let's take the first step. In transaction one, which is the sale of goods to Adiola on credit, we first of all identify the two folds of account involved in this transaction. Remember, in our definition of our double entry principle of accounting or bookkeeping, we mentioned that in every single financial or accounting transaction, there are two folds of account. So let's identify the two folds of account first in transaction one. The two folds of account here is Adiola or debtor account, and the second one is sales account. So these are the two folds of account in transaction 1. Step 2, let us identify who is a receiver and who is a giver, because this will help us to understand who to debit and who to credit, going by the popular slogan of debit the receiver and credit the giver. So we have to identify the giver here and the receiver. So in this transaction, the receiver is of course Adiola, or the debtor, because he's the one receiving the goods that is being supplied to him on credit. And the giver is sales account, which happened to be the sponsor of the transaction, so to say. Remember, we say when we are doing this identification, we consider the accounts in the transaction as if they are human beings. So sales is the one given here, because it is from sales that the goods will be taken to the supplier, and so we credit sales. So sales is a giver here, and therefore leading us to step 3, which is to answer the question by debiting Adiola or debtor's account and crediting sales account with a sum of 5 million naira. So we can see the step we have taken in, first of all, identifying the transactions in the question and the folds of account involved in the transaction, and also identify who the receiver is and who the giver is, so as to understand or know which of them is to be debited and which of them is to be credited. So you can see how simple we are able to do that. In transaction 2, that has to do with the return of goods, we do the same thing. We first identify who the two folds of account in that transaction, which are the supplier and purchase return or return at waste account. Of course, the goods is being returned to the supplier, so the supplier is a receiver, whereas the purchase account, which has been ab initio debited, is now the giver, which means we are crediting purchase supply. So we debit supplier's account and credit purchase return account or return at waste account. So these are the necessary entries needed in this form of transaction or in this form of question. Now, as simple as this may be, we know it's a challenge to some of us, whether we are at workplace or as a student. Sometimes we find it difficult to really know, even when we know that it involves debit and credit, but we don't know the account to debit, we don't know the account to credit, or even how to identify the account so as to debit and credit respectively. So this will help us to understand how we can identify these accounts and know how to also debit and credit. So for those of us making use of working under automated processes, that is, if you are using accounting software, this is not a challenge at all, because when you post in the case of the goods returned, or sorry, in the case of the goods sold on credit, you simply generate your invoice or post your invoice, and the necessary accounting entries are done by the software. For the return to the supplier, you do a debit note. You do a debit note, the necessary accounting entries is taken care of by the software also. So, but it's necessary you understand it, the practical aspect of it, because most of us just post but do not know what we are actually posting. You know, it's very important that you understand this so that you'll be able to interpret what you have done and what or what you are doing. So those of us in school, this will help us to simplify the understanding of the double entry principle and how we can make use of it to treat any accounting problem or issue, whether in exam or in other situation we find ourselves. So for those of us that are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we gladly ask you to do so that we will continue to bring you updates and more questions and problems that will help you in your academic pursuit. And for those working, we'll bring you questions or transactions that are regular occurrence in the workplace. Those challenges that you meet on your table on a daily basis, you'll be able to tackle them without much problem. So kindly comment on the comment section, kindly send us your questions, ask your questions, and also suggest topics of interest to you, so that in our next video we'll be able to put that into consideration. Remember, our mission is to help make students of accounting and business in general to understand the basic principles of accounting and the basic principles of business, because business and accounting are twins. Like we know, the only language business understand is accounting. So the two of them go side by side. For business people, small business owners, we want to help them to be able to manage their business better and protect their business resources. So this is our mission. So kindly support us by subscribing, like, and share our videos. We'll see you in the next class.